Have you ever cared for someone so deeply that when they left or drifted away, it felt like a part of you disappeared with them? Not because they were perfect, not because the relationship was flawless, but because their presence had woven itself into your routines, your memories, your identity. Their absence becomes a strange kind of presence, heavy, constant, almost haunting. You think of them during the quiet moments, in the middle of your day, or at night when the world slows down and your thoughts grow louder. And you wonder, how do I let go of someone who still lives inside my mind? How do I detach without becoming cold, numb, or bitter? How do I move on without losing who I am? If you've ever felt this, then stay with me. Because the wisdom of the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, has guided people through heartbreak, grief, loss, and emotional chaos for thousands of years. They didn't teach us to avoid emotions. They taught us how to master them. They didn't teach us to stop caring. They taught us how to stop clinging. And in the next few minutes, we will explore 5 Stoic principles that can help you detach gracefully, heal deeply, and rediscover your strength without closing your heart. Take a slow breath. You're exactly where you need to be. The first step is accepting impermanence. One of the greatest causes of emotional suffering is believing that people will stay the same, that relationships will last forever, that connections won't shift, but people change. Life changes, circumstances change, and the problem is not the change itself, it's our resistance to it. Maybe there was someone in your life who felt like a permanent part of your story. Someone who knew your laugh, your fears, your secrets. Someone you could talk to without thinking. Someone who once made you feel understood in ways others didn't. And then slowly, life began drifting both of you onto different paths. Conversations changed, priorities shifted. The closeness faded. You sensed it. You tried to hold on. And the more you held on, the more the connection slipped through your fingers. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, everything is temporary, everything is in motion, everything is borrowed. The Stoics understood that nothing truly belongs to us. Not people, not moments, not even our own emotions. When we forget this and begin to treat something temporary as permanent, we set ourselves up for suffering. But when you embrace impermanence, something magical happens. You stop suffocating your relationships with expectations. You stop trying to force people to stay. You begin to appreciate moments as they come, instead of clinging to them out of fear. Impermanence doesn't mean you care less. It means you see clearly. You understand that love is most beautiful when it's free, not when it's held captive. Think of life like a tide. You cannot stop the waves. Trying to hold them still only exhausts you, but when you learn to float, when you allow the tide to come and go, you discover a quiet kind of peace. Letting go is not losing. It is simply accepting that the story has moved to a new chapter, and you too must turn the page. The second step in Stoic detachment is mastering your mind before your emotions. Imagine this: you send someone a message, something honest, something vulnerable. Hours pass, no reply. Your stomach tightens, your mind races. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset? Did they lose interest? A simple lack of response becomes a storm of assumptions. But ask yourself, what actually happened? They didn't respond. That's it. Every fear, every anxious thought, every emotional spiral came from one place: your interpretation. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it that hurts you." Most emotional pain is self-created, not intentionally, not because you want to suffer, but because your mind reacts faster than your wisdom. You take a neutral event and paint it with fear. You take silence and turn it into rejection. You take distance and turn it into abandonment. But feelings are not facts. Your mind is powerful. It can either be your prison or your freedom. When you pause and ask yourself, what are the actual facts here? What story am I adding on top of them? You regain control. You begin to separate your assumptions from reality. And when you master your thoughts, your emotions follow. Emotions may feel overwhelming, but they're not in charge. You are. And this clarity gives you the power to stay centered even when your heart wants to panic. The third step is practicing negative visualization, the Stoic exercise of imagining loss before it happens. At first, this sounds dark, even unhealthy. Why would anyone willingly picture losing the people they love? But the Stoics weren't doing it to suffer, they did it to prepare. Seneca wrote that the person who anticipates challenges suffers less when they arrive. Negative visualization is not dwelling on fear, it is training your mind for reality. Imagine this: you fear losing someone, you fear the relationship ending, you fear being alone. But instead of avoiding that fear, you calmly imagine it. You imagine your life without them, not to punish yourself, but to see that you would still stand, you would adapt, you would grow, you would find new meaning. This practice doesn't make the affection weaker, it makes your attachment healthier, because you stop clinging out of fear. You start loving from a place of freedom. When you visualize loss, you learn to appreciate what you have without believing it must last forever. You stop demanding permanence, you start valuing presence, and when things do change, and they always do, you are not devastated. You are prepared, strong, steady, resilient. The fourth step is focusing only on what you can control. Most heartbreak comes from trying to control things that were never in your power. Someone's feelings, their choices, their effort, their consistency, their attention. You can love someone deeply, but you cannot force them to stay. You can show up fully, but you cannot make them care. You can be there for them, but you cannot make them value you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." This is the cornerstone of freedom. When you stop trying to control someone else's heart, you begin to reclaim your own. You protect your energy instead of spending it desperately. You stop chasing people who don't choose you. You stop bending yourself to fit what someone else wants. You realize that your responsibility is not to preserve every relationship, it is to preserve your self-respect. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm, trying to hold on to a person who is walking away. The harder you chase, the further they feel. But the moment you stop running after them and instead stand tall, the storm begins to quiet. Not because they came back, but because you return to yourself. You realize that peace doesn't come from controlling others, it comes from controlling your response to others. The final step is remembering that you were always whole. Losing someone feels like losing a part of yourself. You feel emptier, quieter, unsure of who you are without them. But the truth is, nothing essential can be taken from you. Not your values, not your strength, not your worth, not your identity. You don't heal by forgetting someone. You heal by remembering yourself, by returning to your routines, by rebuilding your life, by reconnecting with what makes you feel alive. You begin to rediscover pieces of yourself that were buried beneath the weight of attachment. You remember hobbies you abandoned, dreams you postponed, friendships you neglected, parts of you that never stopped calling. You just couldn't hear them over the noise of the relationship. They were a chapter in your story, not the whole book. You are the author. You decide what happens next. You decide who you become. You decide how this pain shapes you. And when you start living from your own center again, something powerful happens. You stop longing for what left. You stop waiting for closure from someone else. You stop believing your life depends on another person's presence. You realize that the peace you were searching for was inside you the entire time. So the next time you feel yourself clinging too tightly to someone who is drifting away, pause. Ask yourself gently but honestly, who has more control here, my emotions or me? Emotional freedom is not about shutting down. It is not about pretending you don't care. It is not about cutting everyone off. It is about seeing clearly, choosing clarity over chaos, peace over proving, stillness over struggling for someone's attention. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you paint your thoughts with fear, you will live in fear. If you paint your thoughts with strength, you become unshakable. You don't owe anyone your breakdown. You don't need to lose yourself to keep someone close. Your peace is yours. Your boundaries are yours. Your healing is yours. Letting go hurts, but holding on to someone who has already let go of you hurts even more. And when you finally stop chasing what is fading, you discover something extraordinary. You are still here, stronger, clearer, wiser, still becoming. If this message found you at the right moment, let it be a reminder. Peace is not something you ask for. Peace is something you claim. Detachment is not the end. It is the beginning of authorship, of turning silence into strength and loss into wisdom. Be gentle with your healing. Be firm with your boundaries. Be loyal to your becoming. You are already enough. Now protect that truth.